It's Diana House from thewiseentrepreneur.com, and today we're here with David Cicarelli, the founder and CEO of Voices.com, one of my personal friends and mentors. Yes. I don't know if he knows that.
Thank you.
But we're so excited to have him here, and we have an amazing story for him to share of Voices.com and his constant evolution of success. Yeah. So David, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you're actually the first interview that I'm doing in this series.
That's great.
And you're the first person that came to mind when I thought of this concept of entrepreneurship and wisdom. So to start, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what your team here at Voices.com does?
Sure. So Voices is what we call a marketplace where we help businesses hire professional voice actors. So these are the people who have great voices, who may be doing radio commercials, theater productions, and be able to kind of translate those skills into kind of the global marketplace for clients all around the world, advertising agencies, video producers, who are looking to hire a professional voice. So back in the olden days, where would you go to hire a voice talent? Maybe you call up your local radio station. Maybe you have, Sally in accounting has a great voice, let's just hire her. Well, nowadays you can in effect kind of tap into this collaborative economy, right? And all of these, freelancers, micro entrepreneurs who have great voices, who have the business skills, the technical skills to produce broadcast audio recordings. So at Voices.com, it is this marketplace that connects these two parties together. And we've been doing that for the last 10 years. It started just with my wife Stephanie and I. And we initially jotted the idea for Voices down on a napkin, and kind of had this concept of, we were doing voiceovers. Stephanie was the talent and I was the engineer, and working here in the city, and realized, hey, if we could kind of put this concept out onto the web and serve much more of a kind of a global community, that would be hopefully a success. And it's been a long, slow process, as I'm sure many of the future episodes will tell, that entrepreneurship certainly isn't an overnight success story. There's a lot of moving parts, and you don't know what the future is going to hold, so you have to kind of make the best decisions in real time based upon the information you have.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we've been trying to do. I've always said that business is, two things. It's nothing more than a collection of people working towards a common goal, right? That's what we are here. It's not individual projects and people's kind of career paths, but it's the collective on us working together. And then the other piece is that the successful organization is really one where leadership or the entrepreneur has made hundreds, if not thousands of good decisions. There's no one decision that kind of the silver bullet that made it happen. It's typically day in and day out, you're making dozens of decisions that add up over the year, and so you have to have a really kind of sound decision-making process, knowing what are the opportunities that you're going to pursue. So that's what kind of the last 10 years have been in a nutshell for us.
Great, and that's something that I wanted to ask you about. What is your decision-making process? Do you have a process that you kind of walk through, or is it very much gut?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's maybe at different stages. I think of the career, or I shouldn't say career path, but more of the life cycle of an entrepreneur, if you will. Right at the beginning, everyone, when you're kind of have an idea forming in your head, then certainly you're going to have a lot of kind of more gut intuition that's going to play into it, because I'll tell you one thing I've experienced is that at the very outset, everyone's going to tell you it's a bad idea, it's not going to work. Why are you doing that? That's crazy. Go get a real job. All of these type of...
You've heard all these things?
Oh, absolutely. And everyone wants to steer you into the safe, air quotes, safe path in life. But what happens is, once you've kind of taken that first step and that second step and kind of made that even maybe a big leap early on, then suddenly you look very wise and that you've kind of plotted this out and you get a few wins under your belt, then all of a sudden everyone becomes your champion, right? And they're all supporting you. So I think the hardest thing in the beginning is to have that, faith in yourself and belief that you're going to be able to pursue an opportunity, and have that intuition to go, I'm going to go for it. Then at that point, you're making decisions based upon often successes in the past, what you think the right opportunity is in the future, and you can tap into other resources to help you make those decisions. More recently, we've been very data-driven, so wanting to make kind of what we call data-driven decision-making. So tapping into our knowledge bases, we call it Center for Lessons Learned, others, research reports, data that we have within Salesforce.com or other kind of financial systems.
So it's very scientific.
I think that's, at different stages you absolutely need to be, because, I think that, we often say, go with your gut, but back it up with the data, right? It's like you can move ahead in one direction, but then you got to have the data to support it.
I think that's great advice. But I hear you have humble beginnings in that your first job paid a dime. Is that true? It
is true. The first job I ever had was my dad on a Saturday morning, paying me a dime to do the dishes actually at home. So that was kind of when I realized, hey, the kind of the exchange of time for money, if you will, and you work hard and then you get money that you can use really however you want, and kind of start to understand that money can be used as a tool to help you achieve other things or acquire things or pursue opportunities.
Right, and I'm guessing that you probably had some other entrepreneurial careers when you were a kid.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of my favorites was buying and selling, trading hockey cards. That was a really big one. To the degree of like going to hockey card trade shows. And
so you took it to the next level.
Everyone else was just attending. I was like the guy, I'm like, can I get a table here? And
I'm so not surprised.
No, exactly. And then you end up trading with everyone around you. So that was a lot of fun. Being in like high school bands, being the one who not just being the drummer and being in a band, but also realizing, hey, we could have a show, and we could promote the show, we could sell tickets. Splitting the ticket revenue with the bar owner or what have you, realizing that was again another one of those opportunities. And last, if I may, was in grade school. I just dawned on me that must have been a really hot summer or something, because everyone was like, oh, we wish we could like have something cool to drink. We're tired of the water, and I'm like I'm gonna go up to the local corner store, the 7-Eleven at the time, and I came back with all these cases of pop. I think I had like 2 24s in my hand, and I literally stacked them up in my locker, and I would sell pop for $1 a piece. And so basically I'd buy the cases for like $3 or whatever for like 24 cans, and then I'd sell them $1 a piece.
It's a good margin business.
I know. I'm like, this is great. And so that lasted, of course, until I think it was probably the janitors realizing like, where are all these pop cans coming from? And then they let the vice principal know, and they pulled me into the office and said like, of course, on them to like squash the entrepreneurial spirit. It's like, you can't be selling pop out of your locker, because they're like
sugar water. Yeah,
exactly. Open up your locker, son. And I opened it up. There's like all these stacks of cases. So I was pretty busted.
So I'm so curious. What did you want to be when you were a child? When you wanted to grow up?
Oh, when I wanted to grow up. Well, I think I always enjoyed airplanes. We traveled a lot when we were young. The way I remember the story was that my parents gave us the opportunity, the kids, it was a big family kind of discussion. Did we want to kind of buy a cottage and kind of spend summers around the house or the cottage, or did we want to maybe more travel and kind of use those this is how I think of it now, use those funds to like go explore the world. And we're all like, well, everyone else has cottages and camps, like we can go to their place, let's go tour the world. And so we've had the good fortune to go to Europe a number of times, and so I always liked airplanes. So I wanted to be a pilot. I think that was the main thing.
Can help you out with that dream.
Yes, I hear. And then and then I think later on, realized, okay, maybe that was just kind of like a childhood fantasy, if you will. Wanted to apply I played a lot of Legos when I was a kid, so wanted to be like a city planner or some kind of engineer of some kind, structural engineer, architect, those type of things. So it's funny because now I look back and realize I'm kind of meshing both of those two concepts, where
how does that relate?
Well, I always try to like loop in the threads, right? Well, certainly we have talent from all around the world. I appreciate their languages that they speak and kind of different cultures that I've even been able to experience firsthand, and whether it be Germany or Italy or France, Australia as well too. So I think there's an appreciation for the different accents and dialects and the way people speak. So we get to kind of hear that and live that out here at Voices. And then on the kind of like architectural engineer front, that's probably the thing that I would attribute to kind of what is it that I do and contribute that kind of nobody else can. And I think that's actually an important thing for entrepreneurs to understand, that you can't do everything on your own, but there's probably the one value add, the one kind of unique ability that you have, if you will, that that you're not going to delegate out or try to hire into your organization. And for me, that tends to be kind of on the systems front. I always engineer these systems that work harmoniously, but also in a bit of a selfish front, I always try to engineer myself out of the process, because somebody once said, you've got to be, I think it's, Michael Gerber has a great book about, working, on your business, right? Not necessarily in it. And when you think about, okay, well, if I got to work on the business, that means I need to kind of step back. And by stepping back, then I'm kind of orchestrating everything that's going on, and that's the way I kind of think about engineering systems. It's like, okay, I'm maybe not going to be, in there day to day, but I can make sure that this is all working the way it needs to, have that big picture view, and then, as I say, engineer the whole system to work together. So that's, I feel like it's all kind of come together in the long run.
I wanted to be a pig farmer. I have yet to connect. I have yet to connect that.
Yeah. You're still looking for that thread of life, right?
Yeah. But let's take people back a little bit to voices.com and how it started, and maybe kind of sharing some of the accolades first, so people, our viewers, can kind of understand. So you currently have 75 employees. Could you kind of tell us a few of your other accolades?
Sure. So we've more recently had a great honor of winning the it was the Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year award a few years ago. Now we're up for Human Resources kind of Excellence Award as well too. And on the entrepreneurial front, a number of kind of obviously nominations and finalists and so forth, and honorable mentions. And in fact, I think they're great team wins, to be honest. And anyone who's built anything or achieved a certain milestone knows that it's not just a lone wolf type approach. There tends to be a whole pack, right, of people that are working towards that achievement. So those are some of the things in terms of outside recognition, but we often are kind of looking internally about kind of beating our own numbers, right? And so we've been able to amass a community of 250,000 users from all around the world. So it's not in the millions yet. That's the next big milestone, of course. And out of those 250,000 users, there's 125,000 voice talent. So these are the freelance professionals that have created profiles on our website, uploaded sample recordings of their voice. And
there's some hilarious ones on there.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
I've gone through it, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, they're real pros. There's aspiring talent, people speaking different languages, and sometimes, languages. There's actually 6,800 languages in the world, and most of us think, there's the few kind of dozen that you might be familiar with. A lot of them are kind of indigenous people groups that they're not widely spoken and even kind of written out. But there is, I think it's amazing diversity in terms of languages that are spoken, which means that there are people that need to be communicated to in those languages, and as such, somebody's got to have the great voice to communicate that message.
Right.
And so those are that community of, as I say, 125,000 voices, and then similarly on the other side of the marketplace, 125,000. What we call clients, the buyers of the services, if you will, who can go onto the website, post jobs, listen to auditions of voice talent, and then ultimately hire them for the project. Right.
So here you have created this, very fast-growing company. I guess what I'm really, really interested in is where did the idea come from? I heard the story of writing the company on the napkin, but were you working in that space? Did you realize that there was this huge opportunity, or were you kind of just following your passions and it kind of just kept growing and growing and growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of looking back, let's talk maybe about the passions first, and this is maybe can apply to some of the viewers and listeners that voices kind of, it wasn't like one day I woke up and had this great idea. It was more of looking at what I call them the milestones, right? All the markers along the way that kind of symbolize or make up, you know, my life, just like they make up, you know, yours. And a lot of them were, well, you know, I went through piano lessons, so I had this musical background, that I played drums and be part of bands, and then I also was, you know, always borrowing equipment, the sound equipment from the church, so that I could record other people. So that led me to thinking, well, maybe I want to become like a recording engineer. So I went to school for recording engineer, and when I graduated, I opened up a small recording studio. And it was actually just down the street here in the city, so I didn't get that far. I'm literally about 1,000 feet away from where I opened up that first studio. And on my birthday of all days, I actually got my name in the newspaper as a full-page write-up. And what I didn't realize at the time is that Stephanie, my wife now, at the time she was a classically trained singer. She was taking music at the university, and she would sing at special events and weddings and funerals, and her mom was, I think, the chauffeur, and often kind of carpooled her around to all these events, and had actually the great idea of, why don't you get a demo CD done where you can record your voice and hand it out to prospective clients. So her mom is actually attributed to the one who cut out this newspaper article and left it on her bed and suggested that she come down to the studio.
Such a good love story.
Yeah, oh, it is. So it's much of a love story. It's an entrepreneurial story.
So true.
And so we really hit it off, and actually it's funny because her mom, I remember this clear as day, she like chaperoned all the sessions. It was really funny, kind of like sat in the back to make sure I'm like an okay guy, and just kind of inconspicuously reading her book. And so Stephanie and I ended up doing all these recordings and really hit it off. And because of the same newspaper article, there were other small businesses in the city that wanted a female voice, and so I knew one girl in the city, which was Stephanie. I was like,
wow, so she was your first customer?
Yeah, she was the first customer. Yeah, so I married my first customer, which is actually really bad advice. Probably don't do that. But it worked out on our front. But so they wanted a female voice. I call up Stephanie. I said, do you think you can come down and read this page of copy? And so when we you know, and I told her that the way I tell the story is that I said that we'd split the money. She doesn't quite remember that part, but she ends up doing these recordings. It was a phone system recording for like an event management
company. The
rest
is history.
Yeah, and then we realized that we kind of got this, you know, website. We should put up a website and basically kind of start promoting our you know, our services that we were offering together. So that's how it kind of all got started, which was, you know, as I say, it's these kind of milestones these markers within life that over time you realize that they all connect with each other, and that's how we all got started.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure this was an overnight success. How long did it take to get some real traction and really get things going?
Yeah, I think the first couple of years were tremendously difficult.
Really?
You know, I think looking back, we even found like our old tax returns,
yep.
Which were below, like, and this was like for both of us together, which was
yep.
below the poverty line within Canada. So it was like so difficult to get things going. I don't even know how we like pulled it off.
I read someplace, I don't remember where this was, that it took you 3 to 4 years to get over the 100 grand.
Yep.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, for sure.
How is that
I think
possible?
It's just, well, I think we didn't have as many kind of resources and advisors and so forth that, you know, that is available.
I was shocked when I read that. Knowing you and knowing what you've achieved, I'm like,
that was the first milestone, right? It's like, what we would have to do to make $100,000, and then, you know, you cross that and you're thinking, you know, you're just adding zeros basically on the end.
Which you're clearly good at doing.
Yeah, well, we're trying. We're trying. No, I think, and I think there was, you know, if there was a turning point, it would be the acquisition of the domain name.
That's what I was going to ask you about next.
Yeah. So, quick story, if I may. We were called interactivevoices.com, which is a horrible name. It's a mouthful. It's like the best thing we could find at the time. Unfortunately, it really pigeonholed us into kind of doing new and interactive media. And at kind of the height of the Web 2.0, movements, and everything was like bright and flashy colors, and companies were dropping vowels out of their name, like Flickr, and we're like, well, maybe we need to like rebrand ourselves. So I looked at Vox.com. I put in a bid of $100,000 for Vox.com.
Wow.
Totally did not have the money, but I figured I would, figure it out when the email comes in or the phone call comes in. So that didn't work out. Look at Voxy and Voxio, and feeling a bit disheartened. I realized that none of these were working. Maybe it was more of a name simplification. So what if we could kind of cut this interactive part off and just be Voices or Voices.com? And so I did what many entrepreneurs do, is you do like a Google search or a whois lookup, right? Kind of a reverse lookup to find out who owns this name. And Voices.com was a medical journal called Silencing the Critical Voices in Your Head.
Someone was using it.
Somebody was using it for this medical journal and was writing psychology papers. And I realized, well, at least it wasn't AT&T selling telecommunications or Voices the movie or something, right? And so I figured, well, maybe this person might be willing to sell the name. Now, rather than me reaching out as David at interactivevoices.com, right, I went through Phil, our lawyer, and who happened to move into the office across the hall from us like that week. I'm like, Phil, do you want to be our lawyer? Can you send this guy an email on our behalf? Ask him, would he sell the name? If so, what price? And he comes back and says $50,000. So good news is...
And you've just kind of passed the 100,000.
Yeah, so
this is like a huge amount of money at the time.
And totally didn't have the money, like,
right,
cash, let alone like credit available or a bank loan. So realized, well, the good news is it was half what I was willing to pay for the Vox one. Right. So I'm like,
this is a discount.
Yeah, this is a step in the right direction. But I went to all the, I think they call them like the 3 F's in fundraising, which are like, friends, fools, and family members, whoever's going to give you the money, right? And everybody said no, and I went to the banks and tried to, propose to them, would they, loan us some money to acquire the name. They're like, oh, you're building a website? I'm like, no, I got a website. This is just a new domain name. And I remember, I don't know if the Super Bowl was on or they saw a GoDaddy commercial, but they're like, can't you go to GoDaddy and get a name for like $9.95? I'm like, well, this one's already registered. It kind of doesn't work that way. But feeling, again, pretty disheartened, which there's a lot of no's, right, that entrepreneurs face. Our lawyer taught us an important lesson, which was to never take no for an answer. Go back with this fellow and negotiate. So we figured, well, why don't we offer him $30,000, maybe a bit more than half. And I'm like, Phil, I don't have $30,000. He's like, well, what do you have? And I'm like, well, how about I send him $5,000 every quarter for the next 6 quarters? So that's exactly what we did. So with $5,000, which I'm thinking foolishly, we probably cash advanced on a credit card or something horrible. We literally like wired him the money, and he like forwarded the name to us, and we got to use it right away. So for $5,000, we were able to rebrand ourselves, and since then I can look back and realize that was like the single biggest turning point.
What a great story. And I would have been curious to know, did your traffic probably pay for a lot of the acquisition?
For sure, yeah. And I mean, those are what I look back and kind of talk about, the blessings in disguise, right? Sometimes there's these unforeseeable positive outcomes when you move ahead in a good direction. And so the traffic absolutely doubled to the website really overnight because of one of the factors that Google had in its algorithm at the time, that they weighed very heavily, which was the age of the domain name. So Voices.com was originally registered in 1998, the same year Google started.
Wow, so it's a dinosaur.
So it's a dinosaur domain name, has kind of like, a certain cachet to it, kind of like, if you will, your old, rich uncle that's really knowledgeable, that kind of like, that understands, how the world works and has lots of experience to draw on. You trust that advice from the person, that maybe has life experience. And so that same kind of principle applies to domain names, that I think Google says, hey, if you've been around for this long, and you've been able to...
You are more legit, and we will send you more
Exactly,
traffic.
So we're happy with that.
Awesome. We're going to just switch kind of directions a bit, and we're going to talk about your beautiful wife, Stephanie,
lovely,
who's also your co-founder. So I'm curious, what advice do you have for people who are considering starting a business with their significant others, or are already in a business with their significant others? I know there are some successful companies like Flickr and Cisco that have started with couples that I've now recently heard have both broken up.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
So what would, it's just a touchy area.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we, the first word that comes to mind is having passion, right? So not only kind of passion on a personal front for each other, but also the pursuit of this, project which turned into a company. And so again, you have to remember, with my background in kind of the audio engineering and her on the creative artistic front, that it really was this kind of like melding of two sides of the same coin. So we were already working within kind of the music and arts and entertainment industry together. We just came at it from two different angles. And so I think that in itself has worked out really well. We also have, a shared religious background, kind of a Judeo-Christian background, which I think, obviously is a lot of commonality there. So shared values, I think, are really critical. And so kind of, blending that all together, I think we realize, hey, we're in this for the long haul together, for life. And so we never kind of even like considered, there being like any other exit strategy or plan. That was never an option for us.
And it almost happened accidentally. It just
exactly. So the thing that brought us together was working together. So that seemed a lot more natural, as opposed to, hey, we happen to be married, let's do a business together. Well, I don't like that kind of stuff. Oh, well, you like something different. That's going to be way harder to pull those things together. So, we already had that commonality right from the get-go.
I'm assuming you guys must have, some sort of boundaries and kind of rules that you use.
For sure.
I read a quote that you had likened some of your kitchen conversations to two boxers in a ring, which I was laughing hysterically about. So yeah, what would some of those boundaries be that kind of help you get through those challenging conversations that often lead to probably amazing results?
Yeah, right from the very get-go, we actually literally got a piece of paper, and I remember this was like our first, I guess, employment agreement, if you were, a partnership agreement. It was like a piece of paper with a line.
You drafted a partnership agreement together.
Oh yeah, it was,
That's awesome.
it was pretty sketchy. It was a line down the middle, right, with like Stephanie's name and my name, and then we wrote out each other's roles and responsibilities. And so, fortunately, because Voices is a two-sided marketplace, so there's two distinct customer groups. So Stephanie has always been working primarily with the voice talent and kind of the artistic and creative side, whereas I've been working more on kind of the business and finance side, which are those clients, and attracting the clients to actually use the platform. So that's, even nowadays, we tend to kind of favor one side over the other, which does create a sense of balance. Marketplaces are really difficult to pull off because it's a whole chicken and the egg problem, right? You need enough supply and demand and have a balance of both. And so I think with each of us having our kind of building up and favoring each side, that we've been able to kind of scale up the business very equally, and that's worked out really well. So in terms of boundaries, obviously written agreements or even back of the napkin, whatever you got to pull off. But we also have, I think, time boundaries as well too. I think those are really healthy. So knowing kind of just planning out weeks, like the week ahead. That's one of the things that we do together. Sunday nights we sit down and like what's going on this week. We also tend to set aside Sunday as a no screen Sunday, is what we call them.
So important.
So it's not just no iPhones or iPads, it's no screens at all, which means no TV, no games, like everything's off. So that just allows us to kind of recharge for the week, and I think that extends into obviously.
So what do you guys do? Do you go outside?
We do a lot of reading. A lot of reading. I read like 140 pages of a book this week, and I'm like I don't feel like I'm almost done this thing,
Awesome.
So we're pretty keen on that one as well too. So I think boundaries are tremendously helpful, and they're not there to punish or anything along those lines. It's more to set up appropriate guidelines of and kind of allow us to be creative within the space of the boundaries.
Well, I see you've already hinted at this, but so how does your entrepreneurship come into your relationship with your kids? Are you raising entrepreneurial kids? And
I think so.
Do you do anything different than the average dad?
I think one of the things I'm always really encouraging the kids to do is to be observant. And I sometimes break out the pirate voice and tell the kids, "G'day, g'day," like whenever they spot something that's like, I read this sign and it doesn't look like truth in advertising, it's like, it looks, or like, again, our kids.
So coaching them to be really discerning.
For sure, discerning, just seeing the world around them, that there's, again, diversity in people, diversity in anything from, building structures or instructions. Like they're just kind of trying to read that one layer deeper in the world that they see around them. So I think that's been one of the ways. You know, and then kind of more on a practical basis, that, you know, if we have a garage sale or we go to something like that, or a market, that it's okay to like wonder what the price is, maybe ask and negotiate.
Nice.
Right? Putting things up on Kijiji, like we were cleaning out our basement, and I said, oh, so, you know, son, anything that you can sell on Kijiji, I'll split the money with you, even though it was like, you know, art stuff, right? So he ends up making like
time to go on Kijiji.
I know. I mean, so he ends up like making like $100, right?
Awesome. Is this venture?
Yeah,
it would be venture.
Exactly. So we were like, we're thrilled because the basement's, you know, cleaner, and he got to learn how to do some ads, if you will, take photos and titles and descriptions, and his descriptions were hilarious as well too, like the mind of, you know, the 11-year-old boy, if you will.
So cool. It sounds like you pretty much have everything figured out.
No,
but I'm assuming you must have kind of some big challenges that, you know, what would you say is your biggest challenge right now?
I think right now, I think going back to kind of making wise decisions, right? That's, I think at the heart of it all, we certainly value and appreciate and are grateful for you know, the team that we've been able to build, and just the size of the company just far exceeded kind of what we ever would have imagined.
Did you ever think you'd have 75?
No. And then at some point we're like, imagine like a 100-person company would be like the dream kind of thing. And, and then and you know, but we see that kind of coming down the pipe in a few months, right? So
the dream is always shifting.
Exactly, which, you know, I put akin to like walking towards the horizon, right? You're walking in that direction, you see the beautiful sunset, but you never kind of quite get there, but it's always out there in front of you. And I think that's such a great kind of visual. So some of the challenges I think remain around, you know, what I call the 3 Ps, right? They're the things that we try to get right, but also the challenges, which are the people, so the people around you, the relationships, the process of going back to the kind of systems and engineering for scale. So you need to have great sound processes around there, and then the product, always having something that's innovative within your space. So if we can kind of hammer those out, then I think we'll be on the right path to making some good decisions and continuing to grow the company.
Awesome, I love that, the 3 Ps. There is a huge buzz right now about the morning routine and the entrepreneur and the morning routine. I'm just curious, do you have any habits or routines or a morning routine that kind of you swear by?
Yeah, I'd say more of a weekly routine. And so it starts with the Sunday the night before. And so in my Moleskine journal, I always plan out the week, and at the top of it says action items. And so I kind of group what it is I'm going to be working on for that week by department within the company. So it always starts with finance, you know, human resources, sales, marketing, support, and then technology. And so within those, it kind of allows me to make sure that I'm touching on every department within the company, because, you know, as a founder or CEO, you need to have kind of a really broad understanding and be aware of everything that's going on. You know, there's no excuse for saying, oh, I didn't understand how that worked over there. You need to know. And so then kind of throughout the week, just kind of, you know, it's not really necessarily a prioritization, but, you know, I tend to kind of, you know, number maybe a few of the things of like my top 1 for the day or my top 1 for the week. So
this is like the one thing.
Exactly.
If I don't do anything else.
Exactly. And then so those tend to be the things that often you don't want to do, but you got to get them done, because they tend to kind of drive the company forward. So that's and then even how like those are written, they're not written like checklist style. They're written like follow up with so-and-so in order to, you know, like kind of direct like action results. With result. And it's like, now I know why I'm doing this, and I see it staring me in the face. It prompts me that much further to kind of get that done. Do
you have a mentor or a coach? I know you play that role for many people.
Yeah, I think not necessarily one person I could, you know, where it's an ongoing engagement. I think more of a network, if you will. So there's.
But do you call people up ever, go like, hey, this just happened, what do I do?
Oh, for sure, so, you know, on kind of a professional front, you know, tax advisor, accountant, lawyer, That's certainly, they're on the speed dial, if you will. And then, again, depending on the situation, I think I've found that to be, at least in my experience, to be slightly more effective, is to find people who are experts in that area. And so for example, if it relates to more of a relational front, maybe somebody who has a background in human resources, or somebody who has a background in working at a church who deals with a lot of people, as an example, right? So that they would be able to kind of deliver some really kind of good advice on that front, where of course the financial questions are going to go to the accountants.
Right, so you kind of seek out experts in all areas,
as
like a
opposed
general list.
as opposed to the one person who does it all. Yeah.
How about personal development? It's kind of another hot topic within entrepreneurship. Do you do any personal development? I heard you kind of do a lot of reading on Sundays.
I do a lot of reading. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Whether
any favorites at the moment?
Right now I'm listening to, I'm actually reading The Millionaire's Mind, which is by Thomas Stanley. He did a lot of research on what is an actual millionaire, and it's not what most people think. It's kind of the working class, blue collar, almost all entrepreneurs and business owners, but people who live relatively low-key lifestyles and yet are really prudent and frugal and just kind of have a really kind of common set of values, but it's all research driven. So
cool.
It's
is
really,
it the psychology of a millionaire?
Yeah, so he did one which was The Millionaire Next Door, which is kind of the person that you probably don't realize that they have $1 million in net worth, but they do. And then The Millionaire's Mind is all the psychology. So this is the follow-up book. So yeah, I'm plowing through that.
So much of it is psychology. And I think just to wrap it up, I know I could talk to you for days.
Sure. Yeah.
So, two-part question. What does wisdom mean to you? And then if you could share one piece of wisdom to entrepreneurs, whether they're already in it or thinking about getting into the entrepreneurial game, what would that be?
So to answer the first around kind of what wisdom means, I think it's important to know kind of your sources of where you're getting wisdom from. And so, the first place that comes to mind, would be, ancient texts, if you will. So what are your kind of religious beliefs or kind of spiritual beliefs? And surely there's, something there. So in my case, it would be the Bible as kind of like a source of a lot of wisdom. And so, Christian or not, I think it's a tremendous, source that people should be, reading at and looking at. And then, you can tap into the wisdom of people. We talk about this expert network, people around you that have those shared experiences that maybe you can, that they would be willing to share those with you. And then, of course, your own life experiences. So I try to kind of draw on all of those. And one piece of advice or kind of wisdom, if you will, that was given to me, which was more kind of a guiding principle for life, which was to follow the flags. And what that meant was look at kind of the tapestry of your life. And kind of let's call it the landscape of your life. And surely there's all these moments where there have been these milestones or mile markers, and there have been maybe a flag planted in the ground, a turning point. And when you can look back, maybe it's all in a straight line. And so all you've got to do is just extrapolate that out and look, where is that next flag? What is consistent with all of the other things I've achieved in life or experiences I've had, and just what would that next one be? And if it's on that path, then it's probably a good decision, right? So you're following that path of flags. And that's, for whatever reason, that one stuck with me. Again, I think because it has a great visual. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for letting us interview you. I know our viewers probably got a lot of wisdom and loved hearing your story. So thank you so much, and I hope that next time I talk to you, you guys have 100 employees and that you continue on this amazing trajectory.
Well done. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Take care.